Imagine if you just woke up. Instantly you became conscious. That kind of wake up where you suddenly just are, oh, here I am. Consciousness. Not like a baby, but right now in this instant, whatever your age is, if you're 6 months old, you're 6 months old. If you are 50 years old, you're 50 years old. If you're 100 years old, you're 100 years old, but you wake up instantly thinking, oh, here I am. Now imagine at that instant that you wake up, you go, oh, here I am. You can also remember everything that you would have learned when you were being born. So your mind is instantly like, I have a full suite of memories and experiences and consciousness from when I was born and knowing my parents and family or friends throughout my life, jobs. You just know everything at once. You're like, oh yeah, I've already experienced that, even though you just became conscious suddenly, like an instant creation out of nowhere, out of nothing. Now imagine all of that you feel instantly as you wake up, become conscious, all those memories again. Everything is part of you that makes your consciousness, and you wake up and you instantly think. Everything that you're saying, everything that you're thinking is based on that life that you instantly were aware of. You didn't know it before because you did not exist. And suddenly you're conscious, you're in existence, and you have the entire life, 40 years of your life memory to the moment you were born, to the moment you are now, instantly all in the way you think, act, and feel. Now, if you think about that, that is exactly what evolution is. We are everything in an instant as we wake up in this moment in time. Now that you can grasp that concept of an entire life instantly happening, instantly becoming alive, instantly becoming conscious, and everything from the day of your birth until this instant moment right now, today, you already know all of it, and your behavior is determined by it. We are determined by our life's experiences. All the experiences are circumstances in our lives. Those circumstances are aggregation. And then they are processed in a big pot, the brain, in conflationary manner. And the selection is going to be which is appropriate according to whatever the thought, the emotion, the psychology is occurring. So the complexity of all of that happening right in an instant is how I explain how evolution occurs. We look at it at a very incremental replication level. From each generation to each mutation to each generation and so forth. What that all really is evolution packaged in an instant relative to time, all in one moment. It becomes our behavior in humans and in dogs and animals. It becomes instant in the sense that it just happens. We just know. If someone asks you a question that you already know the answer to, you just answer without having thought about it because you already know it from the experience. That aggregative manner and structure of processing is evolutional, of course, but now you can understand the concept of what I see it as. I see the process of behavior relative to consciousness and evolutional structure because it's an aggregative format. Think about it. You have all these studies about what people were like in certain times and speculations what people were like in other times that predate any kind of record keeping. And we go, oh, well, they did this. They had some social structure. They had this and that, right? But nobody has ever thought of what about the evolutional structure of consciousness at those eras. The complexity of the brain and the processing structure, the evolutional structure, is going to be similar to animals. So in fact, we could look at things that were done in certain eras of evolutional history and extrapolate from what they did and where they lived, the nuanced structures of the psychology within the movements and habitation. We can determine the level of consciousness constructed at that time. Is that not the oddest thing that no one's ever wondered or thought about it? And the reason why is because there's no comprehension of how the structure of consciousness occurs. So without that knowledge, we cannot create an era of consciousness in its biology itself. The biology of consciousness. That could be a course name. But we have to understand that structure of the sophistication of consciousness during those evolutional milestones to be able to determine how our brains develop to this current sophistication. And what I fear that I am seeing happening now are two specific divergent taxonomies of the human species. Not just the American human species, but the Earth's human species. The divergence into specific types of taxonomies, two core ones, may end up causing a pretty fundamental rift. Because not then would you only have racism to deal with, but then you have an innate structure of the taxonomy, of two taxonomies, naturally opposing each other as well. So now you have a 2 times 2, a 4 squared aspect of social impact and harm. When it comes to the evolutional structure of consciousness and how we move and behave, because we're based on all our circumstantial aggregative experiences, we have to understand that this is how dogs process as well. But theirs, of course, is a much more simplicity of behavior. This simplicity of behavior is what I gauge around the 70th percentile range relative to human sophisticated consciousness. So now you understand that not only is a corresponding dilutive scale that's applicable, but we can see quantification if we create an objectification of what is being done or exercised or performed by your dog. By understanding that means to understand the evolutional structure of how things are being processed. So, in other words, if your dog is processing something in a very efficient manner, in other words, they instantly get angry and become what is called quote-unquote aggressive, that is because they're processing at the simplicity of their evolutional structure. They core down to what I call default emotions, rage, then joy. So the question then becomes, understanding that the simplicity that your dog has in processing is essentially like the character Forrest Gump, who has a 78 IQ and is called quote-unquote retarded. He looks up at Jenny and says, "Jenny, I may not be a smart man, but I know what love is." And we viscerally understand that simplicity to which Forrest professes unconditional love viscerally. Yet, comparing to human, adult, real-life behavior, that kind of love isn't that easy. It's complex. Jealousy, all these kinds of things, envy, rage, joy, insecurities. But we understand Forrest. And all these complexities are how dogs are processing in that comparative. And the simplicity of this is going back to the consciousness and understanding how the consciousness exists in all animals and our behavior, which is intrinsically and innately tied from the start of time to now. We create that grasp of it, we can then destructure behavior on a disaggregative format by being able to compartmentalize what behaviors happen here and here. All right, getting to the end of the 10 minutes. Let me know what you think. I hope you guys enjoy it. We could go on forever to this kind of stuff, right? It's consciousness.